Well, welcome everyone. It is my pleasure to host our first actual MI colloquium of the 2024 fall semester. We're delighted because this is our colloquium where we co-sponsor with Beta Phi Mu, which you are going to be hearing a little bit more about. So let's go ahead and get started. Oops. Okay, so here we go. Again, this is Beta Phi Mu Omnicom Chapter Speaker of the Year event. So we'll be introducing you to Katie Rothley here in just a moment or two. Um, our topic for today is uncovering areas of opportunity, market research for libraries. And a couple little bit meeting tips before we get started. Again, there is going to be a video available for this. You obviously are here, so the video is not your primary um, concern at this point in time, but if you have colleagues, let them know that this happens. Please stay muted throughout the presentation, but we do like a lively chat. So please feel free to put your comments in chat. I'll be monitoring chat. And Katie, of course, we're leaving ample time for your questions. Here's our agenda. This is what we're doing right now. A little welcome and introduction. Then Katie's going to speak for a while. Again, Q&A, some closing comments, and then we'll stick around for a few minutes after we shut the recording off for a few after hours kinds of interaction. So I wanted to let you know again that this is Beta Phi Mu is one of our sponsors. So again, James is going to tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. We are also co-sponsoring with the New Jersey Center for the Book. Sorry, it's stuck. It froze on me. RU Libraries and the Sky LIS Department and the Sky Alumni Association is who is actually sponsoring our event tonight. So with that, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Emil Lawrence. Emil is our Assistant Professor of Library and Information Science, and he's the faculty sponsor for the NJ Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter. And he conducts normative research on issues arising at the intersection of library and information ethics, readers, reading, and aesthetics. So with that, I'll stop my share and ask Emil to take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Connie, for that introduction. And also, as always, for all of the work that you do to organize and host this program. It's very much appreciated. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Fall Beta Phi Mu Omicron Chapter Speaker Series and MI Colloquium. I'd like to take this opportunity to speak very briefly about Beta Phi Mu, which is the International Honor Society for Library and Information Science and Information Technology. It operates with the motto, Alice Insurriendo Consumere, which means consumed in the service of others. The Omicron chapter of Rutgers University was started in 1970, and we operate under that same belief in the high value that librarians place on service. To be invited as a member of the Omicron chapter Beta Phi Mu here at Rutgers, students must obtain a cumulative grade point average of no lower than 3.75 and be recommended by a faculty member. So should you meet those criteria, you may be invited to join the chapter. Okay, with that out of the way, I would like now to introduce the current president of the Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter, James Fahey. In his day job, James is the adult services librarian at Plainsboro Public Library, where he manages the digital collection, including curating the ebook and audiobook collection, digital magazines, and online databases. In addition, James organizes the exhibits in the art gallery, music events, and seminars in emerging technologies, such as the AI-infused quality engineering event that he has scheduled for November 16th. He also has ambitions to launch a monthly networking group for local small businesses in January 2025. So very, very full plate for our president, James. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to you, James.
Thank you, Emil. First, Emil very well described Beta Phi Mu. The Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter is the Rutgers chapter, and we as a group put on several events in the course of the year, at least 3 at this point. We have an annual meeting in the spring for all members, to which we invite a speaker, and then we sponsor the fall colloquium and bring in an important speaker that we think is of value to the entire library community, entire library community. And then in the winter, we do a very small, focused, hands-on presentation, usually in early February, where we focus on some topic of specific interest, usually to emerging technologies or leadership-related subject matter just for Beta Phi Mu members. You have to be a Beta Phi Mu member for the winter and the spring events. The other thing that we do that's really, really important is we provide scholarships for Rutgers students, and they apply for these scholarships. And they need to come with present an essay explaining why their work and their studies and their interests align with the Beta Phi Mu objective, and they have to have a faculty sponsor. And this year we had one winner out of, I think it was 11 or 12 applicants. So we get some good quality applicants, and it's very selective and competitive. We have to raise money for that. So if anybody feels like making a contribution to Beta Phi Mu or learning more about Beta Phi Mu, I'm now linking the chapter webpage, and you can find out more about the chapter, and there's an opportunity there for you to make a contribution to our scholarship fund. I also want to take a moment to introduce the Beta Phi Mu board members who are here with us today. If you're here and you don't have your camera on, please feel free to turn your camera on. And I'd like to start with Chelsea Rizzolo. Oh, excuse me, Katrina. Katrina starts first. Katrina is our vice president, and she was indeed previously a co-president of Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter. And then Chelsea Rizzolo is our secretary. Sarah Pike is our ever energetic membership chair. If you have interests in any of our programs, or if you think you qualify to be a Beta Phi Mu member, you can contact Sarah, and she will direct you to, get a faculty recommendation and so forth. And then Julie Rosano is our communications chair. She takes care of social media, our website, drafting letters, all kinds of things. She puts in a lot of time and energy. And we have a new member of the board, Kellyanne Healy. I'm not sure if she's with us today, but she's our new treasurer, which is very important that we needed to have a new treasurer. And then, of course, the last person on the list, but nowhere near the bottom in terms of importance, is Emil, our faculty representative. He connects us to the university and to the department and provides lots of input to our planning and our efforts. Very valuable contributor. For our speaker today, a little story about how she came to our attention. And forgive me if I talk about myself for a minute. My background is in emerging technologies. I was an executive in various small emerging technology companies, always in a marketing role. And I bring to librarianship, one of the things I bring to librarianship is some understanding of this important function. Understanding your customers first, understanding your patrons first, and then second, building products and services that meet your patrons' needs and interests. And then third and last, not least, but last, is promoting what it is you do, telling people what it is that you do and what you have to offer. And about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, in January, February 2023, Katie published an article in Public Libraries Magazine. And I will, with Katie's permission, I will now share that to you all. This is the whole magazine, so it's kind of, forgive me if it's a big download. Suddenly the internet crashes as everybody downloads this magazine. But it's in it you will find her article, and she talks about market research and the importance of marketing and market research to libraries. It's an absolutely fabulous read. And when I read it, I immediately made copies and sent it off to my director and everybody I could think of in the library, and 6 other directors that I knew at that time. Say, look, here's marketing and what it's all about, and this is for libraries. And so since then, I've been trying to get Katie to come and speak to the Omicron chapter and to the MI Colloquium, and she finally agreed this year. So her background is she's a light. Well, you've seen her background. It's in detail in all the promotions that we sent out. So I won't waste time on that. She's well qualified. The article shows that she knows what she's talking about, and I'm eager now to hear what she has to say. Katie?
Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate that introduction. Please excuse me, I'm a little congested, so if I have to clear my throat, I don't normally need to do that very often, but I apologize if that's a distraction. But I did want to say, again, thank you so much to James, but also to Connie, Emil, Beta, Phi, Mu, and all of the other sponsors for hosting me tonight. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I am going to share my screen. Also, I'm here at the library that I work at, so you get this fantastic view of my background. It's so amazing to look at. Okay, here's my screen. Let's see. I had it here just a second. Okay, and then do this.
We are seeing your screen,
Yay.
and you are at screen full view.
Awesome. Good. All right. Awesome. So you guys already know the title of my presentation. The most important part here is uncovering areas of opportunity. I am going to be talking about why we're here, briefly touch on what marketing actually is and what marketing research is, along with a little bit about strategic planning, or otherwise known as long-range planning, information needs assessments, and their part that they play in libraries' organizational makeup and all the plans that go into running a library, why this is important, how to conduct market research, and then, because we're all library lovers, I have books to consider adding to your to be read list, and then I have references, and feel free to contact me. So I'll go over all of this. I already got quite a wonderful introduction there, and also information shared in the flyer that was put out. But I did want to talk about how I did kind of almost fail out of my college debate class. So I just want to let you all know that if there is a topic that you want to present on, you can totally do it, because I am here right now talking to you. So even if you get all the jitters and everything, you can totally share your expertise. People want to hear what you have to share. I also went to Michigan State University, which I believe in New Jersey you probably don't care as much about, but here in Michigan it's a big deal because we have such a huge rivalry with our U of M Ann Arbor brother. And I also got my master's degree in counseling and in library science from Wayne State University in Detroit. I did get my start in libraries as a computer assistant, and then became an adult services librarian, much like James. Worked in outreach, and then fell into marketing. So like Kathy Dempsey, I am an accidental library marketer, and then I just found myself getting paid for it in a full-time job. So it is possible. I do volunteer for the Library Marketing and Communications Conference. So if you've never heard of that before, you should check it out. It is an annual conference all about library marketing and communications. I'm a big fan of fantasy, chick lit, romance, Regency, historical fiction, psychology. I'm a cat and dog lady. Um, uh, Fascinating fact, I got to top 5 in my state library conference. And then I got out on a word that I knew how to spell, but I was so nervous I messed it up. And then I did powerlifting for a brief little stint, and this probably won't impress you, but I did win out of 3 women in my weight class. These are my dogs. So the one on the left is Luna. The middle terror there is Radley, which is why I'm here at work and not doing this presentation from home. And then the one on the right is my foster dog. Her name is Luella. So if anyone wants to adopt a dog from Michigan, she's available. Okay, now to the meat. So it's probably moot at this point to even repeat that everyone knows what assuming does, but every day you should remember not to assume that you know everything about anything. In my career as a librarian, I can't tell you how many times I've heard things like, we've always done it this way, or this is what they want, or this is what we always do, or some iteration of that. But how do you actually absolutely know? And especially over time, are you doing the same thing year after year after year and getting the same results? All right, this is a huge quote, and we're going to be sharing my whole presentation. I am not reading this word for word, but the big takeaway here is we as library staff, we make assumptions. And what's most important is how those assumptions affect the way the library as a whole operates, from the top administrators who make long-range planning, big picture decisions, to the staff who work directly with the public on a daily basis. So it goes from big long-term ideas and planning to daily operations and how we affect our community that we serve every single day for all the hours that we're open and operating. So I do have a background in counseling, and I find psychology incredibly fascinating. And if you don't know much about marketing and or psychology, I encourage you to start reading about it because it is incredible and you can fall into a lot of black holes. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because marketing and psychology are incredibly important, especially in libraries. I know a lot of people go into library science as a librarian or some other position in the library because they want to help people get the resources that they need to be successful in whatever mission that they're there at the library to do. But how are people supposed to know about those resources if you don't market it? You have to communicate everything to the right audience, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. Now, I also want to acknowledge that libraries are not for profit, we're not businesses. So we don't have the same kind of budgets that these for-profit conglomerates and monopolies have that can invest into market research, the crazy kind where you get all the data and you buy cookies and you like sell information to other people. We don't do that. We can't do that, and we wouldn't because we have ethics. But we are still every single day passively, sometimes mostly unconsciously, and actively, even if you're not really thinking about it, engaging in selling. We sell an experience, a program, an event. We sell a collection, which is a product. Use our book, use our database. We sell a service. You can print out your papers. You can make copies of your important insurance forms. You can learn a new language and become successful in whatever endeavor you're trying to do. We sell. And librarians do it a lot at the reference desks. So if you're in a public library, you might say to somebody who has a child, you might be like, hey, did you know about our story times? That is selling. If you're an academic librarian at the reference desk and you have a student that's approaching you and they're asking for this book, you might say, hey, did you know about these other services? Like you can go to our writing lab and get your papers reviewed or looked at. That's selling. We don't really think about it that way, but that's what it really is. just want to make sure I got all of my notes here. All right, so who needs market research? So put simply, everyone. Everyone needs market research. Businesses, obviously, they engage in this all the time, but even nonprofits, libraries need market research. And why? The complicated and easy answer also is you have stakeholders. People are paying taxes that go into your libraries. I know it's a little bit different with college libraries because of tuition and everything, but people pay taxes that go into their libraries. It's a little bit different from a business, but you do have stakeholders, and you have users, and you need those stakeholders and users to continue doing what they're doing, using the library, and to find value in what you're doing. And you need them to invest in what you're doing so that they use word of mouth marketing to spread the good results about how useful the library is, how impactful. So how do you communicate with your stakeholders and your users? So all of these businesses here, they have refined a way to conduct market research. You might see those little survey invitations on text on the apps. You might run into them on your receipts when you go through the drive-through. You might see it in your emails, and they know what they're doing. They know how to use cookies to show you things based on your current buying behavior. And they obviously have enormous budgets to do the creme de la creme of market research, and they have analysts that do the hard work of parceling out useful information from the data they compile. They're very effective. And people associate these companies as brands that consistently provide a valuable product and experience and identity, like Nike, just do it, or some kind of relational feeling of some kind, like, for instance, Xbox gamers. So these organizations also do market research, might be more on the down low. You may not see it very often. But the American Library Association, our state chapter, our state association does market research too, surveys, all about that. And if you don't follow the Library Marketing Show with Angela Hirsch, I highly recommend that you do. She also does surveys because she wants to give her audience what they want. Okay, also, Rutgers does market research. They might get it back in terms of like feedback about a certain professor or the department, or once you've graduated, they might get data from matriculation and what classes that you're using, and they might also get data about whether you come back and support the university as an alumni. And there's all kinds of data out there. So Rutgers is doing it as well. And if the Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter isn't doing market research, you should start doing that too. Also, questionnaire design and survey methods could be its whole own presentation. There are so many books out there about this, and question design is fascinating in and of itself. And we could talk about that for 2 hours all by itself. All right, these pictures here are snapshots of my library. The one on the left is somebody is doing something in our info desk area on our main library level of the library. And the one on the right is there's a family who is they're doing research, I think schoolwork. This is on our lower level of the library. We do market research too, and it was a part of our, strategic planning back in 2022. And we were pretty lucky that we have a healthy budget. So we were able to outsource and hire a firm called the Ivy Group, who conducted all of the market research for us. They did it with phone surveys, they did electronic surveys, and then we did internal staff surveys, and then they interviewed stakeholders, so community leaders in the community, leaders in the community, and then they also talked to but the managers of all of our departments to get the big picture of where the library was, like a foundation of where the library was, because you have to understand where you are in order to see how well you're doing, and to uncover areas of opportunity where you can grow and improve, and also maybe even add a service. So the purpose of doing market research, why you should do it, is because our communities, they will change over time. Northville we are a district library, so we serve a city and a township. The city population has been declining. There's about 6,000 people, and it has been slowly declining. The township, however, has been seeing a lot of development, so the township is growing. So we're getting more people in the township. The market research that I conduct on a regular basis, I'm able to tell that the east side of the township, that is where there is a lot of people moving in and moving out. So we see a lot of people leaving the area or coming in, and that's an opportunity to reach out to new homeowners or new renters to get them to come into the library. A lot of the people that are lifers, they live in the city. They're also older, and they also prefer paperbacks. So knowing your community, you know how to craft messages to compel them to come in to an event, or to check out the new James Patterson. So these communities, they hold complex beliefs and perceptions, and those can also change over time too, as people move away or get a different job, and they commute out of the area, so they no longer spend as much time in your community. And every library wants to remain relevant and helpful and know how to use its users. So if you don't have anybody that is on Pinterest, don't have a Pinterest social media account. Don't waste your time going on there and pinning things onto your Pinterest wall if nobody is going to look at it. That is a waste of staff time and resources. So another reason why you want to conduct market research is to reach non-users and underserved populations. My library, we use Orange Boy Savannah for our emails. I send out 6 emails per month. One is to people who are heavy readers, so they read all of their physical books. One is to all of the digital users, so they like all of the ebooks, the audiobooks, and streaming music. One is to the families for all of the youth events. One is to the teens. One is to the people who occasionally come in. So that email tends to be more of a catch-all, so it has a lot more events, book recommendations, and then highlights some of our services that we use to kind of give them an overall picture of the library. And then I send out one to people who haven't been to the library in 6 months or more. So we call those the inactive users of the library. Another reason to conduct market research is to tell an applicable, impactful, and valuable story. So if you get testimonials from your users and how using the library has improved their life in some way, either the quality of their life through getting a job, finishing high school, like getting their GED, discovering that they were adopted, these are things that have happened. So if you have those testimonials, they just make it easier for you to tell your library story and message and connect with other people who want to use your resources. Another reason for doing market research is to reduce risk and become more efficient. So if you're not guessing all the time, if you know what you're doing and how to invest your time, you'll stop wasting it, and you won't worry as much about what you're doing, when you're doing it, and at what time, and all of that. I love social media insights because you can see when your audience is most active, and then plan and schedule your posts to publish around those times, and then they'll actually see it in their feeds. I know some of the algorithms though are a little complicated, so that kind of interferes with it some, but it is really helpful. Other reasons why we conduct market research are technology is evolving at a faster and faster rate. For-profit business models, they change all the time. There are different models out now, models out there of subscription. I know we do have exposure to it. Like for instance, Overdrive is an access subscription, Hoopla is an access subscription. There are other subscription models out there based on like paying for performance, or for instance, like I believe Amazon and Hulu have those different subscription packages. Those have to do more with consumption because they like to give different value to different price points for their subscription packages, and it becomes less about ownership. So I like these models and thinking about these models because we're thinking about how we can change our services to better serve people. And as things move more online, that might actually be where library services are moving as well, because we do see an increase year after year in our digital usage, and a lot of our budget is getting moved to accommodate that. So less money is spent on reference sources anymore, and more is invested into digital services. I do want to just say really quickly that I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a background in this, so everything I suggest or recommend here, you just want to make sure that you do consult with a lawyer. There are safety concerns when you are talking about personal data. You're not buying and selling it, you're using it for informational purposes in order to improve your library as an institution and the way it runs. So depending on how your organization feels about levels of transparency when you're communicating to your community about what you're looking to accomplish and the methods that you're going to be using, that is how you'll craft your message to let them know that you're doing market research. Usually it's formatted in strategic planning terms, because you're looking to figure out the direction of the library and you want to take your community with you. So you would give them a timeline. You would tell them that we're only collecting this data because we want to improve and we want to offer more services that are relevant to you. And that none of that data is going to be distributed beyond the library team that is making those decisions, or that outside group if you hire a firm. Okay, this is the old school traditional library way of thinking. If you build it, they will come. So libraries were usually just, if there was a library in your area, you assume people would come and use it, but this doesn't work anymore. So quickly, I'm going to talk about what is marketing. It's all of these things. It's a method of communication, and then it's also a two-way street. So you put a message out there, and then you also get feedback from your user base. And all of these terms, they all have meanings that have some activity within the umbrella of marketing. Outreach itself is a marketing activity. It's when you go outside of your library. You don't stay in the building. You go outside of the library to where the people are, and then you educate them and expose them to library services, library collections. You might even demonstrate something for them if it's on technology. And positioning is when you look at something that somebody values, and then you somehow frame a library service in a way that it provides a solution to them, so that it kind of makes them want to use it more, or they understand better how to use it. So customer profiles, or if you've heard of the term buyer inspire personas. Once you do your market research and you look at your demographics, then you can target certain audiences of the library, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. So marketing is also selling. It's inspiring desire, intrigue, connection. It's first and foremost solving a problem. It's offering aesthetically appealing visuals. It's responding to a demand, which is kind of similar to economics, but it's listening and responding. It's public relations. It's thinking and considering customer experience. And it's also has to do with the methods of delivering information. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you here. So this is a really good question to ask yourself when you are if you're responsible for doing the marketing for your library is, what will make a potential customer user or a student or a patron or a cardholder or whoever you refer to your audience, your user base as, what will make a potential patron want to enter into an exchange with our organization as opposed to another? Because there are so many options out there. Why should they choose to invest their time and energy into using your organization? So that's where market research comes in. And put simply, it's an audit. You collect all of this data, the right data, and then you analyze it. And it's a look at past behavior, usage of the library to detect trends. And the trends tell you the story of how your library is being used or isn't. So that once you've analyzed all the data, then you can hone your communication to be more efficient. You can add services or get rid of services. You can fix holes in collections, and then you can refine current services and add new ones. It also has to do with differentiating yourself from your competitors. For instance, in library land here in Michigan, we're not very competitive with each other, but we do know that we share the same patrons. We're pretty confident though, because the way the consortium works, there's a lot of reciprocal borrowing, so we're not so worried about that. What we don't like hearing though is when people say things like, oh, I'll just get it off of Amazon. Oh, I'll just go to Barnes and Noble, So those are competitors, and that hearing those things, then you can make decisions, you can make changes so that you can help kind of shift people away from using Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Those are just examples. Apparently there are book services where you can just pay to rent books for a certain amount of time to help get your holds list down, and then you can return the books so you don't end up keeping them, which is pretty fascinating. Okay, quick note on strategic planning. Administrators, strategic planning is more for them, but library staff are usually involved in this process, and it can take anywhere from a few months to half a year to a whole year. It just depends on how invested they are in this process. So strategic planning or long-range planning is the overall big picture of where your library is headed. Market research is a part of strategic planning, although it is an activity you can do anytime. And a marketing plan, if you don't have one, this helps you with goals and projects and what you're hoping to accomplish in a shorter period of time. And then an information needs assessment is a little bit different from a market research in that you're trying to figure out how somebody is using something. So you can provide the right resources and then have opportunities for training them on how to use it properly.
So Katie, we're at 7:44 for time.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me go here a little bit faster here. So people are seeking solutions. They're looking for time saving. They're looking for growth, success. They want personalization. They want to know that you're talking just to them. They want to feel like they belong in a community. They want entertainment. They want to be distracted. So how to conduct market research? You want to find out who is using your library, who isn't. So that includes demographics, psychographics. So that has to do with your lifestyle, your preferences, your values, your beliefs, and then consumer insights. So behavior patterns. And this can be looked at in a variety of ways by looking at the data here. So I encourage you, if you ever get a chance, go to American Community Survey and just look at your area. It'll tell you a lot of information about your community, about your state. It's really cool. The region. All of these sources of data can give you a complete picture of your community. Some of the ones near the bottom, like Statista and Simply Analytics and Tableau, you might have to pay for just because they're a little more expensive, and they also go into more detail. Our Ivy group, when they did our strategic planning here, they did Claritas, Prism Premier, My Best Segments. This thing was amazing, and it was also thousands of pages, and they wouldn't let me keep it because it's an incredibly expensive piece of software, and they own it. So other methods I'm sure you're pretty familiar with, like focus groups, looking at your database usage stats, looking at your social media insights. This can give you a complete picture of how people are connecting with you and using the library. SWOTs are really important, especially when you're considering market research and also the direction of your library, because you want to look at what is out there that could be posed as a threat to your library. Especially in our political landscape these days. You want to conduct social listening so you can be ahead of conversations and potential risks to your library. And then let's see. These are all of our competitors. Sorry that I spent too much time on the other stuff. Okay, so what do you do with all the data when you finally analyzed it? Well, you can look at it and you can go from a traditional library to a library of the 21st century, or the library of the future. You can rearrange your space. You can find out that there's an apartment complex in your community that there's people that don't make as much money. It's a lower socioeconomic status area, so they don't have internet there. One library discovered this, and they added a computer station in the apartment complex with internet. You can figure out that a large percentage of people who have a library card don't actually come physically into your library because they're commuting to work. And you can do, instead of homebound delivery, you can do delivery to their workplace because it's more convenient for them. You can add new languages to your collection. For instance, I discovered through Orange Boy that there were a couple of languages that we were not serving. So we added Urdu, Tagalog, and Tamil to our foreign language, international language collection, which is pretty cool. And then we also discovered that father figures wanted to have more specific time with their children. So we added daddy and father figure story times to our roster of programs. So we did that. They were asking for it. We did it. Some libraries add library lockers, kind of like the old red box. I think that's what they're called. You could put those in high traffic community locations, and they can pick up library items and return them. Yeah, you can look at the library design showcase. A lot of libraries will change the physical look of their building based on people's needs. So if there's a demand for more space and you're actually physically able to change the footprint of your library and you have the budget for it, obviously, and make it, this one has a dinosaur skeleton in it. But anyway, that's all through the library showcase. There are libraries that now have community gardens. There are libraries that have social workers in their buildings. And then there's libraries that offer library of things collections, like musical instruments, so that people can try them before they actually buy them. We have tabletop reflector telescopes that go out, so it's pretty cool. And who wants to spend $200 to $400 on a telescope and then figure out that's not for me? Okay, so thank you. These are some of my favorite books here that I absolutely enjoyed. So if you like fantasy, the first two there are incredible. They're my favorite. And then the last one, the Kristen Hanna, she's a little more realism. This book made me so mad, but I have to recommend it because of that. um it was really good. It got me thinking. Sorry I was so rushed for the last of it. Books to add to your to be read list. Um Obviously Donald Miller is great for how to write your stories message. Anne Hadley, if you don't sign up for her email list, she's really great about how to write to your audience. I have a little bit of psychology in there for marketing, and then Mark Aaron Polger and market research and practice here is excellent. And then these are all the references that I used in my presentation.
All right. Well, Katie, thank you so much. So
I
we've got
have
plenty of time for questions. I know I've got a couple questions. Do we have any other people who have a question for Katie? Oh, go ahead.
I can, or James can go first. I see James has his hand raised.
Go ahead. You started speaking. I'll go next.
Yeah, I guess my question is, so do you ever find when it comes to like for market research and proposing these ideas, do you ever find there's like pushback from like the board of directors, or like what's really common in terms of getting pushback? I suppose, like, is it the board of directors? Is it people working at the library? And how would you go about navigating any kind of pushback?
So a lot of pushback comes, I believe, from the opportunity for you to.
Sorry about
It's
that.
okay.
I don't know what
It's
happened there.
It's okay. For negating any type of pushback, you want to make sure you have a complete proposal. So it's all ready to go. They don't have to do anything. You say, here, I've already done all of this. Here's all the data. Here's the outcomes. Here's how the data supports the outcomes. And it makes it really, really hard for them to say no. Now, sometimes it's hard to get them to listen in the first place. So you have to lead with testimonials and the value first, like how the library has made such a huge impact. And then you go into your proposal that's already completed. You don't want to go to them and be like, hey, we should do this, but I haven't done any of the work yet. And they're like, well, no. I mean, if you've already done all the work and your proposal is all set to go, and all you have to do is then implement it and get all the run the data, it makes it really, really difficult for them. And data can back all of that up. So, it's not enough just to have charts. You need to have images of real people in the library that are actually doing what you say that the data is supporting. So you need to have evidence. So if you're at your library, make sure you're taking lots of pictures all the time with permission. Make sure that you're collecting all the data that is relevant to it. And then make sure that you have a fully formed proposal all ready to go, backed up with the data and outcomes.
James?
Thank you.
Great answer, by the way.
Thank you.
I like the hand gestures that go with the answers. So a couple of questions. First, you mentioned that your library is reasonably well supplied, and you were able to hire an outside firm to go out and do some market research for you. And it sounds like it was a pretty professional job. A lot of libraries, I know my library definitely can't afford that kind of thing. And so thinking about how to get around that issue, one of the things that occurred to me is if you can identify various segments of your community's population, and some of them are very obvious, women and men, certain age ranges, people who have particular kinds of professions. You can, like we have a lot of high-tech people in our area. So if you can segment your population a little bit, and instead of doing one big market research program, each year, do a segment and just go out and focus on that segment. And you can use social media to target segments in your community. It costs, $10 or something like that to reach a few hundred, 1,000 people in your community that meet certain requirements. $10. And then you get. Is that something that you would advocate for? I think of sort of a round robin where you identify certain segments and you start off and you go after those segments, and then maybe you do a survey based on what you learned from those first segments, and then you go back to the beginning again, do the same 5 segments, so you can see changes and progress and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree with that, James. Depending on scale, so if you don't have the budget to hire an outside firm to run this whole project for you and get input from your staff and and analyze it all for you and give you recommendations, this is something that you want to do what you're able to do, like with what is reasonably within your means. So it's not something you want to plan to do all at once. It's not reasonable to expect that you would be able to do exactly the same type of work that a firm that specifically specializes in that. So I do think that recommendation to focus on one target audience is very important, because you can figure that out pretty easily by people watching who comes into the library and paying attention. Your frontline workers give you feedback all the time. A lot of it is used for reporting to the state for state aid, just like your desk stats. So you could add something to that. It doesn't need to be reported to the state, obviously, but you could add into whatever is reported for your desk stats. You could add the type of question. What are the things that they're asking for, instead of, that I helped a person, here's a check mark, like you can see what kind of queries they're making, what they're using. If you track that, you can figure out who your audiences are pretty quickly. And then when you look at your event attendance, you can do a quick survey, give it to them in the beginning, that way that they have it in their hand and they can't ignore it. And then they can fill it out during the program. And then you collect those surveys at the end. And it doesn't have to be 20 questions. It can be 3. So there's one thing called the Net Promoter Scale. And if you don't know much about that, look into it. You use this question is what makes up the Net Promoter Scale. And a lot of businesses use this. How likely are you to recommend our business on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being not at all, 10 highly likely to recommend it. If you put that on a survey and then add maybe 2 other questions, like how did you find out about this event or service, and what can we do, a third question, what can we do to improve whatever it is, and you get feedback from people and they're able to volunteer that to you, then you can discover a lot of information in a very easy way. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to call phone numbers and do focus groups if you don't want to, especially if you don't have the time or the staff to invest in it. You can do those surveys. You can have surveys available at the checkout desk when people are coming in to pick up their holds, or they are leaving story time, or if they are using the study rooms, you can put surveys in the study rooms. You can put them in the books.
So Katie, we have another question for you from
Oh, sure.
Carolyn about budget. Carolyn, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
We're about ready to go into working with a small marketing agency
Mhm.
on something I'm calling a strategic plan for our programming. So I wanted to know what kind of budget you had for your market research with the external company and how much that got for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. That is very difficult because I know I'm not familiar with how New Jersey's libraries are set up, but our libraries we're run off of millages. So our millages determine what our entire budget is for the entire fiscal year, and then the way the admin delegates or all of the budget lines for each budget, we have a high operational budget because Northville is I have to say, out of all the libraries I've worked at, it's one of the more affluent libraries, but I have worked at a small township library that didn't have as much money before, so I understand where you're coming from. It's
No.
hard.
I mean, what was the actual amount that you spent with the market
Yeah,
research
was
company?
there an hourly
Yeah.
rate? Did you, was
Like
it,
It was a project fee.
$1,000, 10,000?
Oh, it was higher than that.
Yeah.
It was pretty high. Yeah.
100,000? Like, what are we talking about?
Less than that. So I would say I think it was between 20 and 40, somewhere around there.
And what did you get for that? What did they give you, like a report? Did they give you a breakdown of, did they give you marketing concepts and language that you could use to get more money? I mean, what was the
Yeah, can you see this?
Yeah.
So this was the strategic plan part of the segmentation data that they were able to give us. So they couldn't give us everything. But if you see movers and shakers and country squires, that was just their terms for all of the segments and how they analyze the data. But this is what they were able to provide to us. And so that way we could take a look at this and then formulate plans going from there. And I think it was very, very helpful. So it was worth the amount of money that was invested into it.
Do you
And
know what came out of it as like, were you able to measure like increase in foot traffic or increase in donors, or were you able to get an outcome from your investment?
so basically, we have a problem here, which is people want more space, and because the township is expanding, the library is landlocked. We can't expand. So the biggest problem here that we can't do anything about is space. So now the library board has been determining what our options are, and because of that, we have been looking at alternatives. So a mobile bus has
Mhm.
been investigated, a branch, and a brand new building if possible.
And your
But
market research data that you had is what precipitated this discovery about how can we expand without building a new building?
it's
It
not
came
just
from that?
yes. So not just the space, but also there were a lot of budget, or not budget. There were a lot of collection wants that were voiced. We also discovered that people didn't know that we were doing a lot of what they wanted. So there was a need for more communications that came out of this
That
market
sounds good.
research as well. So it's
Cool.
it's so
Well,
valuable.
I'm gonna keep us, we're a little bit over time, but James has a question. And then I'd like to go back to both Emil and to you, Katie, as well for just a minute or two closing thoughts. So James, what's your question and your closing
So,
comment?
I have a quick comment and then a question. One of the most important things that can come out of market research is discovery of what services you're providing that people just don't know about, and how to reach them with that information. You may think that you're getting information out about your services and your programs, but they're just not getting to people who are interested in your programs and services. And if you have fewer than 50% of the residents in your township have library cards, then I think you need to do some market research to how to reach the other 50%. So my question for Katie, for those of us who don't have a lot of money, how effective do you have any experience in using teen or even adult volunteers to help you with research? Particularly, you talked about putting surveys at the desk. that's great for reaching people who are already coming to your library. But what about the 70% of people who live in your community who don't come into the library on a regular basis? They come in periodically or not at all. How do you survey those people? Can you use effectively, essentially free labor through teen or adult volunteers? Does that work?
Yes, it does. And I have a concrete example of this. I know it's a little, I don't know what the election laws are in New Jersey compared to Michigan, but there was a library that I volunteered for and I used to work at who was doing a campaign. They had volunteers campaigning for the library to get the bond passed for a new building. Anyway, they had volunteers hit the pavement. So there were about 25 of us who were taking these door knockers that had a QR code to invitation to a survey, but also with information. And we physically put them on front doors in all of the neighborhoods in that community. And the township is pretty big. So yes.
Princeton
Good.
Public Library did that.
Yes.
Cool. Kathleen likes that idea. I like that idea too.
Door knockers.
So, Katie, final comment, and then Emil, I'll have you wrap us up, and then I'll have a couple of things after that. So, what's your final words of advice for our audience and for our video audience?
Don't try to put unreasonable expectations or plans on yourself. These things take a lot of time. They take an investment as well if you want to do it properly. A reasonable goal within a whole year would even just be 2 to 5% of increasing your card holders if that is what you're going for. So based upon the kind of survey that you're going for and the kind of research that you engage in, if your goal is to increase your cardholder base, be very kind to yourself and don't expect astronomical results within a very
Right.
short time frame. So
And
you
you-
need SMART
yeah.
goals.
And you get
Yes.
better at this as you do it more.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, good. All right, Emil, last comment.
Sure. I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Katie, for this talk. I wrote down a ton of things, various takeaways. I will not touch on very many of them, but two that were sort of particularly striking to me as I was listening Katie to talk. One was about how marketing is really, it sounds like an ongoing process that because your community is always changing and the world is always changing, you're never actually like done doing your market research, right? Or done telling your story because your story itself is always changing. So I found that really striking. And another thing that I think is really going to stick with me is this idea that good marketing can convey a really vital message to your community, which is that the library belongs to the community, right? It allows people to see themselves in the library and to be in and to take themselves to be in like meaningful dialogue with the library. And I just think that's so powerful. So
Beautifully said,
I'll
Emil.
keep it there, but thank you so much for
Wow,
sharing
that
your
was
wisdom.
beautifully said. Beautifully said. You're right. The library, when I grew up in very rural Nebraska, the library was my refuge. It was amazing. So, just a couple closing comments. So, again, really want to thank you, Katie. It was delightful to have you. Your energy and your charm come all the way from Michigan. So, thank you for that. Our next MI Colloquium, we've got a pretty cool one scheduled too. It's going to be November 14th. It's called Global Innovations in Children's Book Art, Exploring New Directions in Design, Narrative, and Illustration. Our own Professor Mark Aronson, who's an expert in children's literature and animation and anime, has put this together. By the way, in case you want to go to Bologna, Italy with him, you can do that next semester on the book trip, which is part of his special topics class. This is going to be a really cool one. So it's about Korean and Czech anime kinds of stuff. And with that, I will actually stop my share and again say goodbye to everybody. Once again, thank you, Katie. Let's give her an American Sign Language applause, which is this. And I
you,
bid you
everyone.
all good night. Thank you again for attending. And again, the video will be out. So cool. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Are we still recording?
I